We are live for another edition of MCO Talk. I am your host, Vincenzo Landino. Tonight we are talking about a little bit of a topic that I love. We're talking about live stream. We are talking about returning or reinvesting in relationships and how the two work together for brands, whether it's your personal brand, whether it's a big brand, and whether it is a small business. I am live streaming tonight from Meerkat and Periscope. So for those of you joining here, welcome. For those of you out there in the YouTube or Google Plus world, thank you for joining. Let's get into our guest tonight. We have Saba Sedighi and Christin Kardos. I will jump in with Saba. She is a live streamer who has been streaming since the early days of, actually I believe the first few hours of Periscope. Saba was on and live streaming. Saba was also really watching it unfold, and she's done some cool stuff in that world. So Saba, introduce yourself, please. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hey guys, my name is Saba. So like he said, I've kind of been on Periscope and Meerkat since the early days, kind of watch it unfold. Did a lot of listening, listened to a lot of people's broadcasts, and actually wrote one of the first live stream handbooks just a month after they both came out. So that was really exciting. So I'm super excited to talk about reinvesting in relationships and see where the discussion goes.
Awesome, thank you. And Christin is a very good friend, near and dear to me. Christin is a fantastic community manager. She was once the community manager here for MCO Talk. Now, thank you to Cody Stevenson, wherever you are in the world. Thank you, buddy, for doing that. But Christin, helped us launch the show. Christin works very closely with brands and agencies. She knows all about relationship building, and she's familiar with watching many streams, and she's great with that. So, Christin, without further ado, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm seeing a lot of our friends in the stream who already kind of know who I am. I wear a lot of different hats, but I'm a community manager for Social Business Hour, and I know a lot of you attend that as well, so much appreciated, and that's really all I have to say for this evening.
Wow, Christin is fairly quiet this evening, so I'm noticing we have quite a few people in our streams here. I want to make sure I get to everybody's questions. We will open it up a little bit later. If you do have questions, if you're on Periscope, send it in if I don't see it. If you're on Meerkat, same thing, send it in if I don't see it. We do have a great show. We have some questions set up for our Twitter chat, and for us here, we're just having a conversation, so enjoy. I want to jump in, and I want to talk a little bit about R&R, and for those of you that don't know what R&R is, it's a concept that I kind of built or rallied around, known as reinvesting in relationships. And some people say, well, Ted Rubin has return on relationship. It's the same thing. And I beg to differ. But I want to hear from the two of you. We'll start with Saba. What does reinvest in a relationship mean to you?
I think for me, it really means taking the connection that you build on social and kind of taking it offline. And I think one of the great ways of doing that is actually through live stream. And you would say like, oh, live stream is still online, right? But really, I think it's a little bit offline only because you have this engaging aspect where, you're live streaming, people are right there, you kind of have to answer them. If you ignore them, you might get called out. And so it's really about being connected to your audience, being connected to the people who really value your content and consume it, and they can ask questions and they can do deep dives. So that's what reinvesting in relationships mean to me, really.
Christin?
Yeah, I get really hung up on semantics. So when I hear reinvest in relationships, I focus on the re. And what that means to me is we're all of us in this space, we're very busy, and we're meeting people, and we're trying to connect with them online, and we're growing our reach and our networking and all of that stuff. But when I think about reinvesting in relationships, I think about circling back to those connections that I've already made and trying to nurture and strengthen those relationships, and to make sure that every relationship that is forged stays healthy, basically.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's done through community management. It's done, like Saba said, through live stream, and that's really the concept that when I came up with this reinvest in relationship, I kind of got, beat down a little bit, like I said before, because it sounds exactly like Ruben's idea. But, especially with live stream being around, I'm going to reiterate Saba's point. It's so important that brands see how they can do that through through live stream and give back to the audience besides, besides just talking to the audience or broadcasting to an audience. And on Twitter, it's so impersonal, and we like to see face behind the brand. It seems like a few months ago that brands were considered progressive if they were not personally, but if they were responding to their fans within, 45 minutes, an hour, even a day. Some people were like, wow, that brand responded to me. What do you think that's changed now because of whether it's live streaming or it's just, the overall landscape of social now? What do you think about that? Is it changing? Anyone could jump in. Saba.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I think it's definitely changing. I think our patience is going down a little bit, and our expectations are going up. I think we want to connect with the brands. The brand is not this kind of external thing that's very abstract. It has to be real. We want to engage. We know there's people there, people like Christin who are community managers. Same thing for the brands, right? So we kind of expect that engagement. And I think live stream gives a whole new opportunity and a whole new angle for brands to take advantage of. And I think that if they don't jump on it, I think the consumers will end up pushing them towards it regardless of what the companies do want. Because it's just a way to talk to the customer. I mean, I'm a fan of Sephora, and they do product launches on live stream, right? So me as a consumer of Sephora, that's great for me, right? So that's reinvesting in the relationship for them.
If you're into that sort of thing, I'm not the makeup type of guy, but if you're into makeup, it's a perfect brand that's doing something, they're doing it right, and it's funny because you are a consumer of Sephora, or you are a fan of Sephora, so you buy products that they come out with, and the first thing you said is, hey, I feel like they're reinvesting in the relationship because they're doing product launches live to me. They're not just throwing up a graphic anymore. It's, hey, there's somebody there with a face unboxing it and talking about it, describing it to me. That's so important. What are your thoughts, Christin?
Well, first of all, not to go off topic, but big shout out to Sephora, because I don't even buy a lot of cosmetics, so it's not from a consumer standpoint that I'm saying this, but they're crushing it on every front with their marketing and their community activities, so kudos to them. But what I think is I tend to sort of agree with Saba. The game is changing. There are more avenues to connect people directly with information and resources immediately, and so in response to that, our attention spans are getting shorter, and brands that want to compete are really responding to that. So it's becoming almost just a race. And opting out of that for most brands is not going to be an option if they want to be successful. Got to keep the pace.
Let me unlock. Okay, yeah, thanks. Where do you, and Saba mentioned Sephora. Is there anywhere else where you're seeing it being done well right now? And again, I would still say that right now we're in that early adopter phase for brands. It's only a couple months into live streaming, and personally, I think live streaming has changed the whole landscape of social. Not just live streaming, but it's changed the way we interact on Twitter. Facebook is relevant. Instagram, and not that Instagram wasn't, but Snapchat's upping their game constantly now. YouTube is upping their game. So everybody has changed the game because of live stream. Where do you see besides Meerkat, Periscope, where else are you seeing those changes?
I think I'm seeing it a lot, like even like magazines like Cosmopolitan, they're pivoting, right? So they understand that their magazines, their editorials, that's not going to suffice, right? So their viewers are going to want to see the people that are in the magazines. They want to see those people being interviewed, right? And so they're taking advantage of it. Lots of editorials. And I also think everyone is very focused right now on content curation and the quality of it. So they understand that, like Gary Vaynerchuk says, you know, jab, 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 right hook. They know that they have to create content that we're going to consume before we even think about purchasing something. And so I think live stream is the easiest way for them to jab, as you might say, right? Because it's just providing content and providing access to whether it's people or products or information that you might not get elsewhere.
Absolutely. I completely agree there. Kristen, I know you're muting on and off, so I don't want to.
Well, I'm trying to be, you know, because I'm typing. But I can't, I mean, the live streaming issue, that's definitely more Saba's domain than mine. And I'll make a confession, and I'm doing this because I'm curious if anyone out there falls into this category along with me. I have been neglecting viewership for brands, because I'm friends with people like, you know, Vincenzo and Brian Fanzo and Amy Schmidauer and lots of other people who are doing a lot of, Subi Zimmerman, doing a lot of streaming, and it's all I can do to sort of keep up with you guys. And I'm actually curious, going off topic, but I'm curious for anybody watching or out on Twitters, if you're being super selective about who you watch, or if you're, so I can't comment really about the brands.
I'll comment. I mean, comment really. And Saba, we'll both kind of take this, I guess. But for me, I'm selective. I don't just. There's way too many streams going on, so I'm still not seeing a lot of tons and tons of brand stream overloading me yet. I'm sure it's going to happen soon, or it will come. But I do see a lot of streams. So yeah, for me, it's being selective. It's following who I want. Brian Fanzo kind of has an if this then that formula to send in alerts on specific videos that he wants to watch. So he's not, he turns the notifications right off. And I think that's a great tool, because it's overload. So for me, it's jumping in streams where I feel that the audience watching is an audience that I want to connect with, or if the person broadcasting is somebody I'm trying to connect with, or a friend of mine like Brian Fanzo, Sue Zimmerman, Amy Schmidtauer, Rachel Miller, and then, I mean, the list goes on and on, Jeff Goldberg. There's so many, but I won't just jump into the streams just to jump in and give hearts and leave. I mean, there's not enough time in a day. So when live streaming first kind of came on, and there was a stat that was like people were watching 7+ hour or some ridiculous amount of time. They were averaging 2+ hours a day watching live stream. So that's my take. I think you have to be selective. Saba.
You bring up a great point, Kristen, because I really struggled with this when I first got on both of the platforms. Like, how do I balance? Like, do I become a listener? So do I become this like roamer and I just go around in different broadcasts, or do I become someone who actually broadcasts? And I've kind of adopted a rhythm of kind of doing a little bit of both. And I think it's important for me to understand what others are doing. And I think Vincenzo brought up a really great point. Most of the broadcasts that I join are thought leaders in the space, like Brian Fanzo, Vincenzo, those people who are really talking about the platform and how it's evolving. And that's how I grow my audience. That's a really great growth hacking tip. And then the other thing that I like to do is I try to go and I support the people who are doing really well, maybe using the platform in ways that the thought leaders aren't, if they're doing a giveaway or they're showcasing their talent. So I try to promote them as well, and kind of encourage them to keep going, because I think there's two different ones, right? Some people are going to be just promoting themselves, and then others are going to be really working with the brands and really understanding how everything comes together.
That makes sense. And to be fair, I'm probably not a typical use case, because I'm a community manager. It probably alters my pattern. So.
Well, and it goes to show that sometimes those of us that are involved in it, we think that, oh my God, this is the only thing out there. But we have to realize there's still those that aren't watching at all. I mean, there's those let's face it, there's probably like 85% of the world has no idea what this is. When I was doing the live stream, this is a Google Hangout, so a question on Periscope came through. They didn't know what it was. This is Google Hangouts. When I was live streaming for Applebee's in Times Square, I mean, the majority of people had no idea what Periscope was. I mean, majority of people had no clue what I was doing. What am I doing for my phone? Like, not a clue. So, and that was a couple months ago when it was still really new, but still, there's a lot of individuals that have no clue what it is. Like, no, not even an idea. And when you start telling them this is broadcast live, I was doing a show for a while during lunch, and I would go into like Chipotle and give away free gift cards to people like in line behind me, and I'd be like, "Oh, you're live on Periscope," and they'd be like, "What? What is that?" Or I'd live on Meerkat, and I'd do like, I'd do the selfie and a shot, and I'd talk to them, and they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, this is being broadcast on Twitter." So nothing's changed. Still not mainstream enough, but I think that the concept of live stream, if we can get away from the conversation of is it Meerkat versus Periscope versus Nomadcast versus Yep Live versus YouTube versus all these other names, if we can get away from that and just understand that the concept or the idea of live stream is here to stay, then I think we'll be able to push the idea more. Because people get lost when you're like, oh, Periscope, Meerkat. They're like, what? But if you say live stream, they're like, oh, cool, I get that. Or you just, you can explain it a little easier. It's like broadcasting. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I kind of get that question all the time. You're like, what are you talking about? And then you just explain it a little easier, and they're like, oh, I get it.
Just one quick thing I was going to add.
Go ahead.
If you want to.
No, it's okay. You go ahead. You're good.
I was just going to say, on your point, I completely agree with you, Vincenzo. I think a lot of people, when they bring up like Meerkat versus Periscope, I always tell them, I say, just use both of them and use whatever one is comfortable, and that's the one that wins for you. I think a lot of times people just want to have a debate about something versus just use the platform and decide which one works for you, which one is easier for you, which one do you get traction on, and really that's going to be the winner for you. I think having a debate about it is counterproductive to its progress.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. I want to tether onto that and say, the debate, as it were, can really be expanded, because I'm really kind of stoked on Nomadcast. Because Nomadcast, and that doesn't even get name dropped the way Periscope and Meerkat do. But I love the notion that you can do the live streaming with an existing community and not have to build a new one. Not saying I've done it yet, but I find that fascinating. But the debate could just go on and on and on. But what I wanted to say was, I wanted to lob something out at you guys. Brian Yanish, Twitter handle Marketing Hits, he made a comment a minute ago in the stream, and it says, so many brands stream, but they don't engage. Oh. And I was wondering what you guys, now I think we all know that some do.
Yep.
But I wondered what you guys thought about that as a general thought.
I think that's quickly going to go out the door. I think they're going to be able to get away with it short term, but I think as a long-term game, it's going to be a lose for them, because their consumers are going to say, hey, like, we're following you, we're giving you so much, so much growth on these social platforms, like, where are you giving it back, right? Where is the loyalty? How are you returning that? And so I definitely think that they have to be joining into scopes. And that's why, like, one of the things that I try to do is I really try to find people who are doing really well, and they're maybe a little bit smaller, or they just kind of got into it, and I try to promote them, and I try to, push things out to them and get them connected to the community.
Yeah, no, I mean, you pretty much said exactly what I said. Somebody said, I honestly don't see live streaming becoming a mainstream thing. I don't agree. I'll leave it at that.
The only thing I want to say to that is, no one thought Snapchat, and we all know what Snapchat was based off of, so I'm not going to go in there, but no one thought Snapchat was going to go mainstream. And you have people at the Met Gala, and you have, like, presidential candidates and things name dropping it, so you never know.
Even I'm Gen X, And much to my teenage son's horror, I hated Snapchat at first, and now I really love it. And I'm so annoying to people because I'm like snapping my cat and random, things throughout the day. So yeah, you're right.
So Haley says on Meerkat, she said, I agree with Kristen. I think it's harder for the broadcaster to engage on Periscope because the feed runs too fast. And I agree, obviously, that yes. I think the question, though, in its purest form was, are we engaging or are we just broadcasting? And I think there's so many brands, you're right. There's a lot of brands that go on there. I get excited. I'm like, ooh, wow, this brand. And I'm not going to, I'm not here to bash brands. I'm just here to say, hey, I'm here to help. And there's brands that go on and they don't engage. The stream, they either hide the chat, which is possible on Periscope, or they just are ignoring people that are talking and asking questions. And that is what it's all about on the live stream, is being able to interact and have these conversations with your brand, right? With whoever you want to follow. And I've even watched some individual stream, and I'm watching the stream and watching it, and I'm just kind of like, okay, are they going to talk to anybody that's asking any questions? And they never once will acknowledge it. So to me, that's a shame. It's wasted opportunity. It's a relationship you are hurting. So if you want to talk about reinvesting, you're not reinvesting, and then what's happening is, you know what it is? It goes down to this concept where it's better to not do something at all than to do it poorly, right?
Yes.
If you're going to do it right. If you're not going to do it, that's fine. Because if you can't do it the way it's intended to be done, then just leave it alone. So, like you said, Saba, before, brands are going to quickly realize that they have to change, and they're going to have to engage. I did want to thank a brand right now. I wanted to say that this show tonight is brought to us by Zoom. It's social analytics, and also by Applebee's, who I will be doing some work with next week. But they have been extremely supportive of the show, extremely supportive of me, and I'm very thankful for them to be supportive, because that's what keeps the show going. So thank you to Zoom, thank you to Applebee's. Let's get into, let's see, I know there was a question earlier on Periscope. So a little bit earlier, I had a stream and I asked people what they wanted to know, and Kirk O'Connor, so Kirk, I know you're watching on one of the streams here.
Hey, Kirk.
Hi, Kirk, wherever you are. Your question was, he wanted to know how you build fans that aren't necessarily on social media using social media. I thought, and at first I was like, I thought about it, like, that's kind of a dumb question.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it a little harder. And
I think it's actually really smart. It sounds like an oxymoron, but I think it's great. I'll take a stab at it. Quick short story. I worked on a Kickstarter campaign where their target audience was not on social media. We could not find them. And what it comes down to is the way that you reach those people is that you put content out there that they are going to be interested in, they are going to want to engage with. And you don't call it social media. You call it information. You call it knowledge. I think a lot of people have this notion of like social media to be like really time consuming, and you have to like know all these people, and if you don't have like a bajillion followers, then your voice doesn't matter. And I think if you just talk about it in the sense of like content and information, I think it's a lot easier to connect people, because most people these days have an internet connection, so they can't deny themselves that, right?
So I'm gonna take it completely off of that, where we're
But I didn't get to answer yet.
Oh, go ahead.
Just messing with you. But really super quickly, I agree with what Saba was saying, but I also think you have to accept that there's a certain portion of the world who refuses. They just don't want to be on social media. There has to be a value proposition for being on social media as a person. And for most of us, we know what it is, and most of us are on there, but there will be some people that just aren't gonna do it. So if they have an existing community offline and they're trying to get them all online, they need to accept that it's not going to be zero defect. They're not going to get everybody. That's all I was going to say.
No, that's great. And I guess my point was that I wanted to kind of break it down even more simple or simpler than Saba did, where everyone has an internet connection. How about the fact that you can integrate live events, which are offline, which are not, you know, on Twitter, they're not on Facebook, they're not on Snapchat, or they don't begin there. So like this show, it's an event that starts right here online. If you're not online, you will never know about this show, right? You're not on Facebook, you're not on Twitter, you're not on Instagram where it's being promoted, you'll never know about it. And honestly, if you aren't online, I don't really think you'll get any benefit to what we talk about. However, brands like, and again, I'm going to use Applebee's, I'm going to use Cinnabon, we'll even use Sephora as an example. At their core, the event that was done in New York City in Times Square and the event that's happening next week, those are offline events. Those events don't happen online necessarily. However, those brands, and Cinnabon had an event in New York City recently. It was kind of an influencer event, invite only, really exclusive, and you know, I was asked to come in and do some live streaming for it. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, that means that these brands are aware of the opportunity at hand to take people that are offline and connect them somehow through this excitement of live streaming, Twitter, whatever may be going on. So when brands are saying, hey, you know what, we want this Snapchatted, or we want this live streamed, or we want this, you know, live tweeted, that's how they're bridging the gap between offline and online communities. And I'm trying to think of how he asked the question. Oh, so how do you build them offline, right? Using the online techniques. You're still using an online technique. You're still using something that we do every day, live tweeting an event, live streaming an event. But the excitement that kind of ensues from that point forward, you know, it goes through, it kind of like protrudes offline as well. And I'm going to use my example with, you know, with in Times Square. People that didn't know about it were so excited that their face was going to be out there, and they're like, I'm like, oh, do you use Twitter? No. But they were so excited that they're going to be, oh man, you're interviewing me live on this stream, and I'm going to be all over Applebee's. And, you know, there was a whole other connection that we had with Times Square billboards going on. So there was a lot going on, but a lot of it at its core was online marketing techniques or digital marketing techniques that were used to bridge that gap between people that would never ever know about it or care about it. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I need to download that app. I want to see what else they're doing.
Can I point out that it can also be a win if the message is spread. The message is spread, but those people still might not come onto social media. They still might not come to your, you know, Twitter handle or what have you. You can still have a win. Here's a case in point. Applebee's is doing this big, you know, thing next week where they're giving away 2 million appetizers. I was out with friends last night. I have friends who know about that now, who hell will freeze over before they come on Twitter. But they now know about that, and they are telling other people about it. So part of the way to bridge it is just to get your message out there. And people will, if it's something that they're excited about, they will call their mother who's not on Facebook or tell a friend. And those people may never actually come to social media, but they still might be consumers. So
yeah, and you know, I saw it firsthand. There were people, like you said, that were calling their friends like, oh my God, watch it on here. You know, see if I'm on this live stream, or, you know, go check out Applebee's on Twitter, and like they don't even have a Twitter, but like go check it out, or go to their, you know, now on Tuesday we will be broadcasting directly to the Applebee's homepage. So there'll be some other fun stuff going on. And, you know, it's about bridging that gap online, offline. So I really love the question, Kirk. Thank you for asking it. I hope that it will definitely get tweeted out and asked to the audience on Twitter, but I wanted to make sure I brought it here online to our discussion as well. And, you know, I guess it kind of brings us into our next topic. And Saba, you already mentioned Sephora, but are there other brands that you see using or utilizing a reinvest in the relationships that they already have to create a rabid fan base? So really, the R&R concept is really nothing without kind of an end goal, right? We have the action. You reinvest in a relationship, and what does that do? Well, it goes and it creates rabid fans. Do you see other brands besides Applebee's that you see are doing?
Not off the top of my head, but I have noticed that some co-founders of their own startups are really utilizing the platform. So it's not always about the big brands who have been around and they have huge stores and huge fan bases, but I think it comes back to the people that are in tech, right? That are developers, that are trying to build something, that are trying to make an impact. You know, how are they able to leverage this technology to grow their audience, to get the word out, to make sure that people know about what they're doing? I think it's only fair that they are able to take advantage of this live streaming platform because it reaches so many people, just as much as a brand like Sephora. And this is a huge opportunity for them because Periscope and Meerkat and live stream as a social medium is where Instagram was in 2010, where picture content was in 2010. And so if they just follow that and they just stick to it, their brand is going to be able to basically use this as a catalyst. So.
Yeah, and you know, you brought it out right from the floor that brands that are actually on top of it are the ones that really are, that care about their loyal fan base. I used this example the other day, and let me know what you guys think because I think it's funny. But you know, like mobile telephone providers, and even your local, you know, your home phone and internet. They're always like, it seems like the first ones to give the farm away to brand new people, right? But to those of us that have been with them for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4, they just keep increasing the prices, right? So like I have Comcast, and I have no qualms talking about this because I've talked about it many times. Comcast would not provide me with the brand new Xfinity service, the new client, new customer buy-in price. And here it was, I was paying for it for, you know, like 3 years that I've been here in my condo, and every 6 months it went up, which obviously I knew that, but it was like by the time the end of the contract was up, it had gone up double. I'm not even kidding you, double. But some new guy down the street that decided to like use his wife's name and cancel and then restart it got it for like $100 for the top of the line package. And I'm like, how is that reinvesting in the relationship? You've created a relationship with me. We've been together for 3 years, whatever it might be, and here it is. You're just kind of like, you're just kind of leaving me out to dry. And over the phone. So this is. I also want to give Comcast credit where credit's due. They didn't do anything for me over the phone. I called and called and called. I talked to different reps. They couldn't do anything for me. I have to say that whatever community manager was listening to the social conversation, now granted, it wasn't as simple as I would have hoped, but they listened, they DM'd me, hey, how are you over there on Periscope? They listened, DM'd me, and we continued the conversation until they finally treated me as if I had, I was using them for 3 years, and I ended up getting a hell of a deal and whatnot. But that's besides the point. It was the fact they were listening on social. That was more of what I'm trying to get at. I just find it interesting, And do you know of other brands? Do you think that there's other brands that do that, or what do you think based on the statement I made? Is there, what else do you want to add to it? Because I think that there's a lot to be learned from hospitality industry, food and beverage industry. That's where I see a lot of this reinvesting in relationship happening. And maybe you can comment on why you think it's happening there and not in other locations or industries.
It's so funny that you bring up like a technology company, because I'm recently going through this with AT&T. They have decided that their data plans are not going to be competitively priced, even though I've been their customer for like 10 years now, right? And so you call their customer service and you're like, I've been with you for 10 years, I don't want to switch, but here it is. And then the new person, for new user acquisition, they have all these perks, right? And so it's like, is there more value? So do they value user acquisition, or do they value user retention, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that really plays back into social media as well. I think any relationship is two-way. You have to really, if you just work on the ones that you have, there is so much that you can gain from that than always trying to get new people. just like another use case example, AT&T hasn't been doing the best job. Maybe they're listening.
You guys brought up two really hot buttons with me right now. So I can't be constructive because I see red. Because I've had conversations like this lately about valuing the new customer over the existing customer, which is a flawed model for obvious reasons. And then also, I'm not going to go on a rant about AT&T, but I have one that I will spare the community from right now. So.
Oh, that's, yeah. I don't want to turn this. I don't want to bash anyone. That wasn't the point. It was more or less. I just want to prove that companies are listening on social more than they are elsewhere. It seems like, but they don't know how to interact. They don't know how to go about that. Putting time into the relationship. They're listening. They're paying attention. Trust me. Any big major brand is listening. I work with some pretty large brands. And in hospitality, in food and beverage, they're listening. The tools we have to listen are fantastic. The resources we have to respond and reinvest are next to nothing. And I think that's there's a gap there. There's a gap. But with live stream, go ahead, Saba. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add one thing that came to me. I think that I think you're totally right. I think it's easy to kind of set up a listening tool like TweetDeck and just have all of your different lists and just know what's going on. But I think that the other side of it is a lot of times if someone was hired to be a social media manager or a community manager or whatever, like, reinvest in relationships manager, whatever it may be, right? They did not sign up to live stream maybe, right? And like, that's what the new thing is. And so they're like, I don't want to be on camera, so we'll just, show our products, or, we'll just tell people we're on this Periscope and do it creatively, right? And so I think a lot of people, they don't want to go out of their comfort zone. They want to just interact with the software, what they're comfortable with, what is, you could say, streamlined. So, right. And I think it's really going out of your comfort zone, and I think a lot of the news, I think live stream is making people come out of their comfort zone. When you see Instagram accounts with 500,000 followers, when you don't really know who that person is or what they're doing, or their name is like, I'll just throw one out, like Daily Dose or Build Your Empire, right? Like, these are great inspirational accounts and they give a lot of value. But then when that person is on live stream and they are answering questions, do you know how much more they become loyal to that fan base? I started following a lot of those accounts just because I saw who was behind the scenes, right? So I think live streaming is really enabling a whole new world that wasn't enabled with any other social network.
Yeah, and Christin, from a community manager standpoint, so this leads us into a great question now. Christin, being community manager extraordinaire that she is, what is your take on that? You didn't sign up to live stream. You just kind of signed up to interact with people through 140 characters or Facebook or something else. Are you finding that people are looking, or audiences are looking for more? And how do you know?
From me?
From
specifically, or
companies you work for, brands you work with. What do you think as an audience? Like, if I'm interacting with you, is there a sense of, hey, I want more than just you tweeting me back? Like, is there something else? And here's an example of it. I get it a lot with one of the food and beverage companies I work with. Hey, give me a free sub. Give me a free this. And I mean, that's a little much, right? But they want they're looking for something more because, like, they've interacted. So there will be some individuals that we'll interact with for quite a bit, right? We'll go back and forth. It's great banter. It's good for the brand. It's good to really give back to them. They think that they're talking with the brand. It's fantastic, right? Then after that, it's like, well, now they expect something. I don't agree with that particular aspect of it. Like, now that just because I've talked to you, now you expect a free sandwich or a free cookie or a free drink, whatever it may be. But at that point, what can brands give back? And like, do you see that in the brands you work with? People are like, okay, I've hit the point where I've talked to you enough. There's really no more talking I can do to you. I want something else.
Yeah, just based on the nature of the people, the brands, and my clients, if you will. I haven't seen that, but it wouldn't really be, it wouldn't really fit to what the services are. But I will say that I have observed in watching other people's streams some sort of gimme type of stuff going on. There was a guy complaining in somebody's stream today about people charging money for courses. And no disrespect to this gentleman, but I thought to myself, okay, well, really? Because do you want to take the time to develop a training course and not get paid for it? So even that was sort of like a gimme. There does seem to be an element of that, even though I haven't encountered it personally. I've observed it. There does.
I had 2 comments here on the. Actually, they're from Meerkat. Rehana Remin says, Saba, I can relate to your AT&T story. It doesn't seem like loyalty and customer retention matter as much.
Yeah, I just saw that actually, and I'm glad someone else feels my pain out there. But I mean, there's some companies that really crush it when it comes to customer retention. They really focus and they listen. And then some companies are just more focused on user acquisition. And I think that's why there are different companies for different types of people for different priorities.
Yep. Malia, my favorite Malia, how are you? She on the Meerkat, she asks or says, comment here, people aren't connecting with slick billboards. We want to talk to real people. Kardashians are over. and Malia's in LA. I'll tell you that right now. She's in LA, so that's kind of interesting.
Hey, Malia. I like Malia.
Hey, Malia. Oh yeah, she does really great. She does really great meerkats on Global News. Is that correct? Is she still doing that?
She is. She's fantastic. Malia is one of my favorites. One of the originals.
Yeah.
I know. So here's a perfect example. Looks like Applebee's has jumped into the stream.
Awesome.
They are having a great conversation, jumping back and forth with us right now. I mean, whether you're a fan of Applebee's or not, I don't want to get into their food sucks, because that's what always happens. People want to talk about quality of food, and it's a fast casual restaurant. So let's just get that off the table. But they're engaging on social. They are having, they're being talked about. They know they're being talked about. They're listening, like we know they are. But they're actually engaging. Here's a conversation that they may not have to engage with. This might not do anything for them. But the fact that there's 300, 400, 500 people, whatever it may be, that are kind of in this stream. Now Applebee's is getting attention. They're getting marketing. They're getting people think they're cool now, and they're going to talk about it, right? So that's cool. That's awesome that Applebee's jumped in. I'm kind of really happy about that.
And they do have really yummy food. So
they've completely changed.
The food is delicious.
Yeah, they've completely changed. So I think it's fantastic that people are finally looking at it. I know that on the Twitter stream we're asking about different brands. I know we've talked about it here. I want to see what is being talked about. Let's check the Meerkat stream real quick. Kira, who works with Keenan, she says Keenan has started responding to good engagement with Twitter videos because he sent one to Sales Prodigy. They made him, and it looks like she must have tweeted something. I can't see it here. So, yeah, again, it doesn't have to necessarily be live stream. There's Twitter video. And how cool is that to get a Twitter video response from an engaged brand or a company? Remember, it doesn't have to be a brand. It doesn't have to be a hotel or a fast food restaurant. It could be a software company, right? It can be a tech company. It can be anybody, or it could be a startup. It can be a small business.
Actually, it's all the better if it's those types of things, because they can really add some flavor to what they're doing.
Absolutely. Let's see. You know what? How about this one? This is a good question that we have here. Are there any brands that you want to see? And Saba, we talked about it a little bit with AT&T, but are there any other brands that you would like to see reinvest in their current fan base rather than always be in acquisition mode? So other than AT&T, is there anyone else that you've noticed? And this is time to call out whoever you want to call out, because why not?
Well, if we're gonna take the conversation there, I think Apple. I think that's kind of like almost a place that we shouldn't go, because I'm on my MacBook Pro and I'm checking my iPhone, and then the iPad is right there. But everyone knows that they have not gone into social, and they have this mentality of we don't need it, and they have customer loyalty like through the roof, right? Like I've read a lot of articles about the 10 most influential brands for millennials, and Apple is right there with Nike and other brands, and so I'd really like to see Apple get involved. I think Nike does a really great job. I think Adidas has been doing an amazing job. I don't know. I can't really think of anyone. I can't think of anyone to call out at the moment. But I think there's a lot of brands that are bringing it back, and I think Adidas has brought it back.
I was gonna go there with Apple personally.
I've got one.
I have a MacBook Pro. I have two. I have my phones, and I've had every iPad and every iPhone and all that, and iPad, Mac Air, and this. You're right. It's like I want to hear from you on social. I mean, they went and hired the guy from Nike. His name escapes me right now. Who ran social there, and they're not doing. And you know what though? It's funny because it's almost like they feel like they don't have to, right?
Exactly. And I have one that falls in the same vein, and that's Harley Davidson. Sorry, I love you, but
Harley,
work it out. It's the same kind of concept. Like it's a seller's market, right? You love our stuff, so.
And I have some
comments when you want to spend money.
Yeah, I mean, I have some comments here. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate that. That's a great comment. I just got word that they discussed Apple a little bit earlier in the chat and how they feature user photos in their commercials that are on their website. So people feel like that's maybe enough for them.
That's lazy.
But in defense,
not enough.
I know I just called out Apple, but in defense to Apple, they have amazing customer service. Their online chat is available 24 hours a day. If I have a problem, there is someone there to help you. There is someone that's, sharing your screen. They're fixing your problem. Their Genius Bar is amazing. So they don't focus on social, but they focus on their customer. And they have amazing customer service.
You have to give them that. They do have really, really slick, awesome, and I've even experienced that too. I will give them kudos for that.
So my question is this. Does live stream help maybe, or how about this one instead? Let's ask this question instead. Is marketing customer service, or is customer service marketing, or both, or vice versa, or neither?
Is that a question in English?
Is marketing, is it customer service, is customer service marketing, neither or both?
It's all one thing if you're on social media. It all is part of one outgoing, and it all blends, basically.
I agree, and I also think that I think if customer service is done correctly, it becomes marketing naturally. And additionally, I think that's why so many brands are so obsessed with Twitter as a way to engage with their customer, because it is so public. They're like, didn't you see? I responded in 60 seconds. That's actually one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about with live stream is I don't know if it has enough PR. And they're going to have to kind of make it more public somehow. I feel like Twitter has become so mainstream with like different news stations and television adopting it and hashtags on Coke bottles. I don't know how live stream is going to translate, but to answer your question, I think if customer service is done right, it becomes marketing. And like Christin said, it's actually all one thing on social. So.
You made a great point. Malia also kind of echoed that point by saying marketing and customer service better be two sides of the same coin or you're in trouble. Malia, fantastic point. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I do feel that customer service, like Saba said, is the precursor to better marketing. By marketing, customer service is basically is marketing to the people that are already there. It's reinvesting in the relationship, right? And that's your best form of marketing because word of mouth becomes more viral than, hey, spending. I mean, let's face it, if we're talking about ad dollars now, if we're going to go into that conversation, which we won't, I'm just going to say it and end it. if we're talking about pure ad spend, we're spending way more money on trying to acquire one new customer than what we can do to keep the base we have right now by simply maybe picking up a phone and streaming, like you said from the outset, Sephora doing an unboxing of some new product. I mean, that to you means more than if they were to throw a bunch of money at some TV commercial to try to acquire you. So if we get into that conversation, we could be here all night. But I do like to end the show with a life hack. And I know sometimes we miss the life hack, so I want to make sure we get to it. I do want to see if there's any more questions, though, from the Twitter stream before or Saba, I know you're periscoping as well. If you have any questions there, I want to make sure you get those out. And if anybody else had any questions, I'm going to check really quick, kind of leave it for open question and answer. I have Adidas and Nike are great. Check out National Geographic on Snapchat. Thank you, Malia. Let's see. Mike Baltus says he's so tired of Mike Baltus says live streaming apps will help brands learn how to differently engage with their fans and potential new client base. Malia kind of agreed and said that she's so tired of brands shouting at their consumers. Thoughts, questions, comments on those couple things that came in just recently on your end, Christin?
Oh, I was just going to say I like that comment about how brands will have to learn. But it's just a testament to the fact that things are constantly changing. And, of course, the live streaming being relatively new as a widespread thing is huge. But in relative terms, it's new. So everybody's learning from it. Everybody is discovering a new way to communicate, and that includes the consumer, it includes the brands. So it's pretty powerful in that way, and I think we're going to see it evolve over time, but he made a good point.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say is I saw an interesting tweet from Steven, and he said, while AT&T, they are relying on brand equity for customer retention, their security is they own many gates. And I think that's a very true statement. I think when you are such a big conglomerate like AT&T is, where they have control over so many different avenues, you can neglect, I guess, customer retention more than other companies. But I guess the only thing I want to add to that is, at the end of the day, someone became your customer because they chose to. And they don't want to leave, right? No customer really wants to leave because it's a headache for the person, because then they have to go shop around and find a new vendor. And then it's going to be a loss on their side. And so I think if companies were not so, I guess, introverted and thinking their brand equity was enough, I think things would go a lot more smoothly. Don't you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a great point on both sides of the spectrum there. Okay. I want to make sure we ask our life hack because it's supposed to be the last question of the show. Share one daily secret getting yourself in the right mindset for success. And I know it has nothing to do with what we've talked about, and that's the point, is how do you get your day started? What gets you going daily and sets you for success? And Christin, I'm going to start with you because you know the question, because you've been on the show, or you've been dealing with the show. So how do you set yourself up for success?
All right, I'm using a recycled answer, sort of, because I say this every time, but one thing that I do every morning that gets me in a good mindset, aside from some of the obvious things, is I talk to Rachel Miller. Now, you can't all talk to Rachel Miller because that would really irritate me because I need her to pay attention to me. But I recommend having, in addition to other things that you guys are going to suggest, one thing that I recommend is to have a person, hopefully someone like a colleague or a peer, that's your person that you can kind of kick off the day with just a quick message or a hello, and kind of have a morning greeting from someone that works either with you or doing the same type of work you do. That's mine.
Yeah, I have. Actually, go ahead, Saba, and then I'll read some from the stream here.
Yeah. So two things came to my mind when you asked the question. One was I actually have the quote, success only happens with consistency. And it sounds very like cliche and like we all know like quotes and this and that, but it reminds me of two things. It reminds me that success is possible, and the second is I have to be patient, and that's what consistency means. And I think that's one thing in social that people don't always understand is they want it to happen immediately. And nothing happens immediately. Nothing on social does, nothing successful, nothing worth having comes easily. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is Gary Vee's Monday motivation video. Even if it's not Monday, if it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's like a 5-minute video, and he is just so real. He's on like the corner of this like block in New York. It's like freezing, and then he tells you like you could have been a bus. And he tells you to like take control of your life and just figure it out.
I love that too.
Those are my two things.
I love that too.
So here, I'm just going to pick a couple from the stream that I really like. Chris Barrows, I hope you're watching, buddy. His life hack is turning off notifications and looking when he wants to. If someone is good, I'll know to come back anyways. Awesome. Haley says, I have my Nespresso machine, but she wants a Rachel Miller. She needs more friends in her space. Let's see. Tim McVeigh says, if sleep is important to you as much as social media, you silence alerts. Plain and simple. And then a couple others like pray, customize your alerts. So a lot of people really are talking about the alerts and whatnot. That's great. I love the one pray, and I like Saba with the Gary Vee video. That's fantastic. I mean, for me, and I've said this in the past, for me, it's personally it's getting out of the house early in the morning and at least going for a walk, a run, a workout, whatever it may be, kind of exercising the body, making the mind a little bit more creative throughout the day. It's been working. I slip up here and there, but I try. So we all try, and sometimes things get busy. But I want to thank my fantastic guests, Saba, Sedighi, and Christin Kardos. You guys are fantastic. It was an excellent conversation. I love talking to you. I love that we don't have any scripts here on MCO Talk.
And we've all met in person, by the way.
We have.
I met both of you guys in San Diego for a social media day. It was so appropriate, like National Social Media Day. We all meet. It was perfect.
It was fantastic. Saba, thank you for driving down because you're about an hour away, right?
Yes. I am based out of Orange County. So yeah, the traffic was it wasn't too friendly, but it was well worth it.
But it was worth it. We got to go out to dinner later, and we got to hang out a little bit, do some live stream, have some drinks, and it was fun. Social Media Day San Diego, for those of you that are not familiar with what we're talking about, was last week or 2 weeks ago at this point. 2 weeks ago at this point. In San Diego, it was Social Media Day, and we had a lot of fun. So I'm glad I got to meet both. Well, Kirsten I met before, but Saba, I'm really glad we got to meet at least for a little bit. And I'm still mad that you ditched me.
It's not my fault that you had to fly out early.
I did. Damn Applebee's.
You're just too busy for me. So
stop.
Gotta come back.
Anyway, thank you all so much. Again, Zoom. I want to thank Zoom Applebee's for making the show possible. And for those of you still watching on Meerkat, at the end of the stream, you will be able to click on the button, and that button will bring you to my R&R newsletter, Reinvest in Relationships. Please sign up. I will not spam you, I promise. You can always opt out as well. But it talks all about things that we've talked about today, whether it's reinvesting in a relationship, whether you're a big brand, whether you're personally branding, your small business, and how to use live streaming really to bring that to your brand. So for MCO Talk, and myself, and Kristen, and Cody, who is my fantastic community manager.
Hey, Cody.
Thank you for yet another fantastic episode. We will see you next week.
Bye.